Now we get to verse 22, and it says, "And then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hand towards heaven, so that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, on man and beast, and every plant of the field in the land of Egypt. Then Moses stretched out his staff towards heaven, and the Lord sent thunder, and hail and fire ran down to the earth, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. And there was hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, very heavy hail, such as had never been in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation." So we talked about this just a little bit. This is where we ended, right? About this hail that was falling on the ground. And so I brought up, and we're going to bring it up again, fire or hail and fire, verse 24, continually in the midst of the hail. The word continually in the midst in the Hebrew is L-A-Q-A-C-H. I'm not going to try and say that. L-A-Q-A-C-H. It's used almost 1,000 times in the Bible, 960-something times. And it means to take hold of. So we see this when a man is to take hold of his wife or to grasp something. 2 times in the Bible, it is to take hold of itself, to take it into. And so what I think this hail is, and you can disagree if you want, is a large ball of ice that has grabbed a hold of fire, and it says that the fire is continually flashing in the midst of the hail. So as this ball of hail is falling to the earth, you can see that fire that's still burning actively in the midst of the hail. So we sit there and go, how's that possible? Well, that was the miraculous that happened. That was the power. God said, look, I have so much power that I can wrap fire in ice and it'll fall to the earth and it will still be as I made it when it lands. I brought this up. Jewish teaching, ancient Jewish teaching, says it was like the pit of a pomegranate. The fire could be seen inside the hail. So as this is going on, they can see through the ice and see that glowing fire in the midst of the hail. So then we had talked about it a little bit last week. For us, a small hailstorm isn't uncommon. We have several a year, depending on where you're at. 2 weeks ago, you could have got it multiple times if you lived just a little northwest of us. Some of it was, quarter size hail or so, maybe bigger. In Egypt, rainfall is very sparse. The Mediterranean area where Pharaoh probably was gets about 4 to 8 total inches of rain a year. So just last week, we dumped out 3 inches out of the rain gauge from 2 or 3 rains. That's their entire rainfall for the year. Down by Cairo, which is a little further south, they get 2 to 4 inches annually. And then the rest of Egypt, we talked about being a desert, they get less than an inch of rain. So you kind of have to have moisture to have hail. That's how it works. They're not having the moisture. A hailstorm is rare for them. And then that's God saying this is something that they've never seen before and they're never going to see again. Let's continue on. 25. And the hail struck down everything that was in the field in all the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and the hail struck down every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the people of Israel were, was there no hail. So this is the first plague that we see that directly kills a person. This is the first one. It's killed both man and beast. So we had the disease before that just killed the beast. Now we're going to have both. It kills man and beast. This hail was so severe it broke off every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. We talked about this numerous times. The Egyptians were a very theological people, and they made gods out of everything. If it had any form of life to it, they would make a god of it. So they, of course, had gods of the plants, of everything. But as we talked about, this, they're sitting there going, we've killed off all of or God, Yahweh has defeated all of our gods up to this point, and now not even our sky goddess, Nut, is protected. She's either joined with Yahweh or she's been killed as well. So we can sit there and see, this is devastating to them. It just continues on. Yes. Yes, he's in charge of it. He can do anything he wants with it. Stan, will you click the next slide? It's not. I'm going to turn this off and back on. There we go. Verse 27, Then Pharaoh sent and called Moses and Aaron and said to them, This time I have sinned. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Plead with the Lord, for there has been enough of God's thunder and hail. I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. So, now Pharaoh, we see this time I have sinned. He's going, the other times, I didn't really mean it, but this time I really mean it. I'll let you go. I heard and I wrote it down. This is this saying, I have sinned. That's not a phrase we hear a lot in the Bible. We think we hear it a lot in the Bible, but it's not a common phrase. I did a little bit of research, and I'm not saying these are all of them, but I found 8 times where someone actually said, I have sinned. I don't know. So we have Pharaoh here. He says, I have sinned. We have Achan in Joshua. He says, I have sinned. We have King Saul, we have Balaam, and we have Judas. These are all what we would consider as not faithful followers of God or wanting to do what God wants us to do. We have 3 more that said, I have sinned. We have David. We have probably the one that came to me first was Job. Job says, I have sinned. And then we have the prodigal son in the New Testament. So 8 times that I found where that phrase, I have sinned, is mentioned. Again, we think it is brought up a lot. We have the concept of people sinning and repentance, but to actually come out and state, I have sinned, it's just kind of rare. So Moses, verse 29, Moses said to him, As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will stretch my hand to the Lord, and the thunder. So all of this was the lead up, telling Moses what would happen, or Moses telling Pharaoh what would happen. And Moses said to him, As soon as I have gone out in the city, I will stretch out my hands to the Lord. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, so that you may know that the earth is the Lord. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not fear the Lord of God. So I misspoke. They were in front of Pharaoh. He summoned them, and then they say, as soon as we go out, we'll stop it. So there wasn't any of that, tomorrow we'll stop it. He said, as soon as I go out in the city, I'll stop it. But there, that last line, verse 30, but as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear the Lord. He's saying, I will stop the destruction, but I know that you're still not penitent. I know that was just a false statement just to get whatever you wanted. We've seen this multiple times where Pharaoh has said anything he could to get the destruction to stop. And Moses calls him out here. We're seeing in all of these Moses get a little bit braver, and now he's sitting there going, I know you don't mean it, but I'll stop it. Verse 34, but when Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and the thunder had ceased, he sinned yet again and hardened his heart, he and his servants. So the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people of Israel go, just as the Lord had spoken through Moses. So it's kind of one of those like they knew, right? We can kind of get in this. We can kind of get in this habit. I've seen it in my own life, but we kind of make these empty promises, especially to God, and then we don't do it. We don't follow through. And you know, the first couple times you do it, it's hard. You know, it's like, man, I kind of regret saying that. But then once you've done it a handful of times, it just gets easy. It gets easy to sit there and go, next time, God, I'll do it better. Next time I'll do this. And we're kind of seeing with Pharaoh that almost like he's promised this so many times now, it's just like it really has no meaning. No meaning behind it. Any thoughts on that? Okay. We finished the 7th plague. Going on to the 8th. And then the Lord said to Moses, go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that I may show these signs, it would help if of mine among them, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your grandsons how I have dealt harshly with the Egyptians, and what signs I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. So here this is the Lord saying to Moses, you're going to go in and you're going to tell them it's going to be so bad. What I'm about to do to you is going to be so bad that your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandkids are going to remember it. They're going to be telling stories about it. It's a warning. Also, it's going to be so bad that it prevents this forever war. Now, yes, they go back, and there's a war. There's wars happening now over the same people of the same land. But, God's coming here and saying, my people are going to get out of Egypt. I'm going to deal so harshly with them. God had to deal harshly He has to deal harshly sometimes to teach us what He says is required. How many times did something that we think is just a minor sin and God strikes them down? I think of Acts, Ananias, not Ananias, Sapphira. Who am I thinking of? And was it Acts 4, Acts 5, where they said they sold a land for an amount of money and it ended up being more and they saved some? They didn't have to lie there. They could have just as easily said, we sold this land and here's what we're giving you. But they wanted that recognition, and God struck them down like that. There's so many times throughout the Bible that we see, we're like, man, that seemed a little excessive. But for God's point of view, it stopped the sin right there. It stopped it, and it wasn't continued. Verse 3. So Moses and Aaron went into Pharaoh and said to him, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your country. So we have here, Moses is getting to his pride. And he's saying, you're not humbling yourself. You're not showing Yahweh, the true God, the reverence that he needs. I have wrote down chapter 9 and verse 17. If you look back there, it says this, when he's talking about the hail, he says, you are still exalting yourself against my people and will not let them go. So now 2 plagues right in a row, he's telling them, you need to humble yourself. You need to humble yourself and let the people go. Verse 5, and they shall cover the face of the land so that no one can see the land, and they shall eat what is left to you after the hail, and they shall eat every tree of yours that grows in the field, and they shall fill your houses and the houses of all your servants and all of the Egyptians, as neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen. From the day they came on earth to this day, then he turned and went out from Pharaoh. So, go back with me to look in your Bible to chapter 9 and in verse 31. Chapter 9 and verse 31. It says, the flax and the barley were struck down, for the barley was in ear and the flax was in bud, but the wheat and the emmer were not struck down, for they were late in coming up. So I don't remember who asked it last class about the timing of these plagues and when, how long did we have from start to finish? And I threw out, what I've read, what I've heard. Kind of the quickest we have from start to finish could have been about 4 months, but most people think it took about 18 months. And so here we kind of have a look at it. And so we have in the 7th plague the wheat. Let me make sure the wheat and the emmer were not up yet enough to be damaged by the hail. They were late coming up. But when the locusts came in, it says that they ate everything that was green that the hail hadn't destroyed. So now we have, if they planted their field in flax and barley, and then they came in behind it and planted wheat behind it or next to it, around it, obviously those were on different growing cycles. And so now, God's came in and he's taken out their entire food source, grain source for the year. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. Yep. So he took out what was ready, and then when they didn't accept that, when Pharaoh didn't accept it, then the locusts came in and took out what was left. They take out everything that was green. They take out they'll eat every tree. And then they're going to be in the houses, in your servants' houses, everywhere except where the Israelites are. You think, man, that sounds bad. But not only are you hungry, not only is all your gods been decimated, but now you got locusts in your house. Just the annoyance, it just causes so many issues, especially for them at that time, where I kind of envision it being like the frogs, where they were just in their beds, in their pots, in their stoves. Now you have locusts everywhere. So, not good. I mean, it doesn't sound, yes, it sounds bad. You're like, man, that would be bad. But then when you really, kind of with the frogs, when you're thinking about it, you're like, whew, I wouldn't want to be there. That last line there. Then he turned and went out from Pharaoh. He just gave, in the last one, in verse 30 of chapter 9, he's before Pharaoh and he says, I know that you don't yet fear God. In this one, he says, this is what I'm about to do. And, if he's holding a microphone, I just kind of envision like a mic drop. And he just lets it fall and he's walking away. And so we're seeing this. Not only is the Egyptians getting ready to kick out the Israelites, but God has built up Moses to be that leader for when they leave Egypt. They're now going to have that person they can look forward to or look up to. And it holds true to what he told him at the beginning of the plagues when God says, Moses, the people are going to hold you as a god. Any thoughts? Okay, verse 7. Then Pharaoh's servant said to him, how long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not yet understand that Egypt is ruined? So this isn't, they're going to ruin Egypt. It's past tense. He says, do you not understand it's already ruined? They've ruined Egypt, and they're going to continue. Verse 10, but he said to them, the Lord be with you. If ever I let you and your little ones go, look, you have some evil purpose in mind. We kind of see Pharaoh coming out here as the man, right, as the king of Egypt. He's like, I still don't trust you. You have something evil planned. No, go the men among you and serve the Lord, for that is what you were asking. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. We have to remember here, this sounds weird, right? But in Egyptian culture, only the men participated in worship. So he's saying, you don't need the women, you don't need the children. You only need the men. So take your men and go worship. You don't need everyone else. And he was driven out from Pharaoh's presence. Verse 13. Verse 13, so Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind had brought up locusts, and the locusts came up over the land of Egypt and settled on the whole country of Egypt, such a dense swarm of locusts as had never before, nor ever will be again. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, and we've talked before, it wasn't like one area and that the Israelites were in and the Egyptians were everywhere else, but they were slaves. They were intermingled with the Egyptians to an extent. And so now these Egyptians are sitting there looking out, and their house is covered with locusts, and they look over at the slave house, and the slave house is going on like normal. So it's just continues to cause issues. Here in verse 13 and 14, we look at this east wind. We've seen that one time already. In Genesis chapter 41, an east wind, when it's the, I'm trying to, it's the dream. Let me just turn over there. 41. That's Joseph's dream about the ears of corn. And so there's an east wind that causes that dream, that causes the ears to bow down. In Exodus 14, it's going to be an east wind that divides the Red Sea. And then, I didn't write them all down, but multiple times, if you just type in east wind in the search on your phone, on your Bible app, in the prophets, anytime there's judgment coming, it's almost always brought in by an east wind. So it's just, I don't know why that's chosen, why that's significant, but it was enough to bring up that you just see it over and over again. It usually means bringing judgment. So an east wind. Let's go back to, or continue on. Verse 15, they covered the face of the whole land, that's the locust, so that the land was darkened. And they ate all the plants of the land and all the fruit of the trees that the hail had left. Not a green thing remained, neither tree nor plant of the field, through all the land of Egypt. So that's important, right? I mean, plants have to have leaves. They have to have green for them to continue to live. That's how God uses to for them to get sunlight and for them to get water and them to let off CO2 and all the things that happen inside of plants, they have to have leaves. And here, the locusts are going to decimate it. So, locust. There's still a problem today. And not so much here. I remember, I probably said this, I don't remember, but I remember back 2012 or 2013, there was a grasshopper scare, and everybody, there was some videos of grasshoppers just decimating like the Panhandle and things. And they never really affected us crazy here. But locusts are a thing. In 2020, there was a locust plague. They called it a plague. It obviously wasn't. It was a locust attack. And locusts covered 6,600 square miles, and they were in 10 countries. And that's over in this area of the world: Egypt, Iran, Iraq. They estimate that there was 192 billion locusts in this that covered this 6,000 square miles. There was 200 million locusts per square mile estimated. So then break that down to something we can actually see. That's 7 locusts per every square foot. So just over a piece of paper is a square foot, and there's 7 locusts inside that piece of paper eating. Each day they consume the same amount of food as 90 million people. So that's something that happened today, and it says in the Bible that the locusts that came on the people were worse than they'd ever had it and worse than they'll ever have it again. So in 2020, when that locust happened, they were talking about it being a biblical plague. It wasn't a biblical plague. It was a locust attack. God said, what I did was way worse. And we look at this and it almost seems like the wind blew them in and then they started eating, and now we're going to get here. And Pharaoh hastily called Moses and Aaron and said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now therefore forgive my sin, please, only this once, and plead with the Lord your God only to remove this death from me. So he didn't even allow the locusts to remain there for very much time. He hastily called, and they were able to devour every green thing, every leaf, every plant. We kind of see the last 2 plagues now. Pharaoh, it's like it's gotten worse and worse. He said, I sinned. Now he says, I sinned, forgive my sins. He says, I have done wrong, and fix it. We're going to see where the same thing continues. Verse 19, and the Lord turned the wind into a very strong west wind, which lifted the locust and drove them into the Red Sea. Not a single locust was left in all the country of Egypt, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the people go. So he was just begging for forgiveness, but then here in the next breath, he sits there and doesn't let the people go. Any thoughts on that before we move on to the 9th plague? No. We sure do not give God the emphasis when things are good. Yes, Sheb?
When we read this, you think it seems like Pharaoh repented and confessed his sin there. But then it says God hardened his heart.
Well, it goes back to the same situation we've had in every plague, is he never truly was going to let the people go. He in every time, even when he said, "I'll let you go," he was always putting his own stipulations on it. He was always keeping something back for himself, and God knew that from the beginning and said, "I'm going to bring all the plagues that I can do on him," and before he finally ever lets people go. So this is the same. This is the same Hebrew word that we've seen multiple times. I have a slide we'll probably get to next class with all the Hebrew words that are used. But it's chazak. It means to seize, to strong, to seize, to be strong, to bind, to conquer, to fortify, to harden, to help, or to hold. So he didn't change Pharaoh's mind. The meaning of the word, we see it as harden, and he didn't harden Pharaoh's heart the way we think of it as he changed his opinion. All he did was let Pharaoh continue to hold the same belief he had. And I see it as he just let him not have doubts. You know, he took the doubt out of the equation, and Pharaoh's sitting there going, "I'm not letting the people go." And he'll say whatever he has to get the plague to end, just like he's done. So, but anyway, that's my thought on the matter. I could be wrong. Any thoughts? Okay, 9th plague. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness to be felt." Have you ever been somewhere so dark that you could feel it? There was one time, I've been down there a few times growing up, but I can remember it. Feels like one time. We went down to South Texas to those caves, and we walked down there, and it was one of, you're going down this little bitty staircase they built, and you're like, you can barely see the staircase. They've got 2 lights on in the thing, and then you get down there, and you're like, man, I can see pretty good. And then they say, nobody move, we're going to turn out the lights. And they hit them lights, and immediately you can feel it in your body. You don't know which way is up. You're like, I'm pretty sure that's the exit, but it ends up being that was the exit. Completely turned around. This isn't like a low light situation. This was one of those where there wasn't a light to be had at all. A darkness to be felt. Verse 22, so Moses stretched out his hand towards heaven, and there was pitch darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. But all the people of Israel had light where they lived. Now explain that one to me. Explain how the light is 4 miles away, and where I'm sitting, it is dark. So dark that I sat in my chair that I was sitting in when it happened, and I didn't move for 3 days for fear of what I would walk into. How? That's the ultimate of all of the plagues. And how did it happen? Like, how did they not get any light? God turned the light switch off, and they sat there for 3 days. Then Pharaoh called Moses and said, "Go serve the Lord. Your little ones may also go with you. Only let your flocks and your herds remain behind." We see this again, right? Lee's about to ring the bell. I'm not going to go through any more. But we have here, Pharaoh's called them. It's dark. We hadn't moved for 3 days. And he goes, you can take the kids, but you got to leave the flocks and the herd. And Moses is going to say, we don't know what we're going to need when we get there. We haven't practiced as Jewish people, as Israelites, as God's chosen for 400 years. We don't know what we're going to need or what's going to be required when we get there. We're taking everything with us. We'll continue on with this next class. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I've got a few announcements, and then we'll turn it over. Let's remember our sick. We got Jeff Means, Grand Saline resident. Also Ronnie Monk and Don's dad. You remember Don's dad in our prayers. Haley Kemp, one of the Edgewood residents, and then the little Ryder Shaw, the little gentleman from Van, sixth grader from Van who's had leukemia. So remember those folks in your prayers. We got a whole list of folks on this prayer, so make sure you take one of these and remember those folks in your prayers. Things coming up. This Sunday we'll have Aaron Anderson preaching to us this Sunday. We also have the 17th, that's the Marvelous May birthday. Ain't that the birthday thing? Everybody eats and everything, so that's coming up Sunday evening. And then the 5th Sunday on May 31st, that's the 5th Sunday. We'll have a short service that afternoon, and then it'll be your rest of the day. A couple of things. Let's see, Aubrey Harold, she'll be graduating on May the 22nd. She's graduating out of Grand Saline. She's the valedictorian down there. So that's an announcement they wanted to share with y'all. So glad to hear that. And I believe that's about it. I believe that's all I've got. Anybody got anything that I overlooked? Everybody good? All right. Wayne has our closing song, invitation song, 179, if you want to turn to that. Justin has our closing prayer, and then Ben has our devotional. So we'll turn it over to Ben.
If you would turn to 2 Kings 5. 2 Kings 5. I want to make a few observations from that chapter there. Okay, this is speaking of Naaman. I'll just start reading here. Now Naaman, the captain of the host of the king of Syria, a great man, with his master, honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. The Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captives out of the land of Israel, a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would to God that my Lord was with the prophet that was in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is from the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes, and said, Am I God, to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray thee, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so that when Elisha, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent their clothes? Let him come unto me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariots, and stood at the door of Elisha. Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash into the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again unto thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought he would surely come out unto me and stand, and call on the name of the Lord, his God, and strike his hands over the place and recover the leprosy? Are not Abana and Porphyros, the rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be cleansed? So he returned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spoke unto him and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldn't thou have done it? How much rather then when he saith to thee, Wash and be clean? Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh became like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Excuse me. He returned to the man of God and all his company, and came and stood before him and said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth, but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of the servants. And he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will not receive one. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules of burden of earth? For thy servants will henceforth offer neither burnt offering or sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of remnant to worship there, that he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of remnant. When I bow myself down into the house of remnant, that the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto them, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little ways, and Gehazi, I guess, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master hath spared Naaman, this Syrian, and not receiving at his hand that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. And so Gehazi, or whatever his name is, followed after Naaman. And when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men, and the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garment. And Naaman said, Be content, take the 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound the 2 talents of silver into 2 bags with 2 changes of garment, and laid them laid the 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, and took them from their hands, and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go, and they departed. But when he went in and stood before his master, Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. And he said unto him, Went not my heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, or to receive garments, and olivers, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maid servants? The leprosy, therefore, that Naaman shall cleave unto thee and to thy seed forever. And he went out of his presence a leper, white as snow. A couple of things that I want to make mention of. Of course, the little girl that, if she waited on Naaman's wife, she knew enough about God to say, if he lived back in our hometown, he could be cleansed. And of course, him being a noble guy here, the king would love for him to be cured of leprosy, so he sends it to the king of Israel there. Naaman, one of the things, look at it, when we get down to Elisha, didn't even come out and speak to him. He just sent his servant out there and said, just go dip in the Jordan 7 times. And I was looking on the map. Damascus probably was about 150 miles from Samaria. And the Jordan my guess from the nearest town, you know, if it was Samaria or if you went back up in chapter 4, he's in Gilgal. So I'm not sure where Elisha is. Googled it and they said he's probably 15 to 20 miles from the Jordan River. Now, why is that important? The important is Naaman, he goes away wroth and mad. He's not making a beeline toward the Jordan River. He's going back to Damascus, which you would follow the Jordan River. So it could have been 15, 20, 30 miles. And they figured that was just about a one-day journey, like on a mule or a horseback or a chariot. So Naaman had gone, had gone a full day. The way I read into his servants say, look, man, we're at the Jordan River. If he told you to do something great, wouldn't you have done it? But I don't think he made a special trip to the Jordan. He just happened to come by it on his way back to Damascus. And so he takes their advice. One of the main things I wanted to bring out, if we get down here to verse 17, I think, and 18. And Amos said, shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 meals, burdens of earth, for thy servants will henceforth neither burn offerings or sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when thy master goeth into the house of remnant to worship there, he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of remnant. And when I bow myself down in the house of remnant, the Lord pardon thy servants in this thing. And I was thinking, and I know from time to time I hear people talking, and I think I've been put in that situation before. The company that you work for may send you to a place, and most worldly people want to go to Vegas. Well, I think if you was caught in that situation, you don't quit your job. Now, if you're wanting to go, that's on you. But Naaman's saying here, look, the king is going to lean on me. I'm his protector. I'm going to have to go into his house of worship, but I believe in the God of Israel because of what Elisha had done for him. So I just thought that was a contrast from what we've been studying in Daniel, where Daniel refused, to bow down, and he continued praying as his habit was. But I know from time to time people get caught in a rock and a hard place through their work or whatever. And I was thinking back when Chris carried one of his boxers to the Nationals, where did they want them to be? They wanted them in a casino. Kids don't really care about a casino, it's the adults. But you do get caught up in situations like that. So Naaman was just telling Elisha, I'm going to have to go. Will you pray for me, And in verse 19, I guess it is, he said unto him, go in peace, and so he departed out a little ways. Another thought before I close is, Gehazi, or however you pronounce his name, look at his attitude. He saw that Elisha didn't take that gift, and he wanted it himself. And I don't think he made a very good bargain. Getting leprosy and his descendants getting leprosy for the changes of clothes and the silver. But that's all I have. I thought that was an interesting where Naaman confesses, I'm going to have to go here. Will you pardon me? But anyhow, if anybody has any needs, you would come as we now stand and say.
Though you wandered so far from his presence come today. Hear his loving voice calling still, calling now for thee. O weary prodigal, come, calling now for thee. O weary prodigal, come. Come, there's bread in the house of thy Father, and to spare. Hear, oh, hear him calling, calling now for thee. Lo, the table is spread, and the feast is waiting there. Hear his loving voice calling still, calling now for thee. O weary prodigal, come, calling now for thee. O weary prodigal, come.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this wonderful day you've given us. Lord, we thank you for this time we have together in the middle of the week to study your word. We ask that you be with us as we continue to go through this week, that we go through it as Christians, pleasing to you. In Jesus' name, amen.